No story spoilers, none whatsoever, but there will be gameplay related leaks for Tears of the Kingdom that have already been posted by leakers elsewhere. You have been warned. 3, 2, 1. Okay, what's going on, everybody? It's Zach from SwitchForce. I find this to be thrilling, and I saw somebody make a really great point that mechanical leaks, structural leaks just get me more excited. And I totally agree. I think that's the same for me, that mechanical and structural leaks get me excited. Story leaks make me sad. That's why we don't ever cover that here. But I did want to touch on something that I think is actually huge. It's really insane, and it's the way that they've made maybe the coolest items ever in a Legend of Zelda game for Tears of the Kingdom. One thing that we know is majorly missing from Breath of the Wild were dungeons, and they are also, I'm really giving you spoiler warnings here, you can leave at any time, but if you're still here, there are dungeons back in the game. Now, these dungeons are being compared to sort of like 3/4 of the way there. They do have some really nice external lead up in the way of Skyward Sword or some of the like back end of Wind Waker type things. Really fun dungeons, and it seems like there's about 6 of them right now, which feels like a healthy number. The first 4 can be accessed in any order you want, but what's really cool is the items. Dungeon items are something that are incredible. I think so much of my Zelda memories are tied to dungeons and then their respective items, right? That's how you solve the puzzles. That's how you learn to utilize Link's multifaceted talents and skills to defeat enemies, to traverse and progress, to platform a little bit, and to solve the many mysteries of the game world. And oftentimes they're used primarily in the dungeon they're found, but then they do have some like nice implications later on. Well, in Breath of the Wild, we got Champion's abilities. Now, those were tied to the dungeons of Breath of the Wild, which were the Divine Beasts, but I would argue that they were quite possibly the most boring dungeon items we've ever seen. They weren't very exciting because it just felt very like stuck on, like, oh, Link can now lift. Link is a little bit better. It didn't really feel like we were getting something that puzzled us, helped us, progressed us. But I'm very happy to report that in Tears of the Kingdom, your dungeon items are abilities, but they function more as items because they are done by a companion. Now, we've seen in the trailers, Nintendo's shown off Link fighting aside Sidon. And initially people were like, co-op, but no, obviously that's not the case. And then we saw Link with Tulin flying through the snowy skies. It's clear that you get companions in this game, and these companions are with you as you progress through their associated dungeon, and they will provide you with a skill or an item effectively. But because these are more dungeons in the sense of puzzle solving, platforming, and also beating a unique boss, these do function more as items as opposed to just straight up abilities. The one that I've seen referenced a lot is Tulin's ability to basically horizontal Revali Gale you. So instead of vertical, it's horizontal to help you cross chasms and I'm sure solve puzzles in one way or another. Now this is really nifty because not only do these abilities affect the dungeon progression, but they stay with you after the dungeon in the form of a clone spirit ability. So a clone of Little Bird Brain will come and help cast this horizontal Revali's Gale for you when you see fit. It's much more of an item type thing than it was in Breath of the Wild, where it felt just like a buff maybe to Link. And I know we're not having like, oh, we have a hook shot attached to our backpack or our arm now, but in a way, calling on a companion is kind of the same as like pulling something out of your pack and using it as an item. And the fact that they are utilized to progress throughout the dungeons and elsewhere in the world makes it feel a lot more like a traditional item as opposed to just a perk. And it seems like there will be a companion associated with each dungeon and therefore an ability / item associated with each dungeon, and you keep them after the fact, giving you a nice arsenal of dungeon items after you beat the dungeons that you can call upon at any point in the world. I think it's a really genius way to kind of mix the middle ground between traditional dungeon items and the champion's abilities that we had last time around. You know, one of the big difficulties with dungeon items is if you're going to go with the non-linear ordering, how do you make it so you don't break the game and or put yourself in a horrible predicament where you need something that you don't have, or you have something that you don't need, or you render a lot of items useless. You see, with a natural linear progression, you're able to sort of set these things at specific points along the game. So, okay, Link first gets the bow and arrow, and we can solve basic things there. But then eventually he's going to get boots, and then eventually he's going to get a hook shot, and it just makes sense, and you can kind of progress things and build them up, and it doesn't feel redundant, like you're getting something worse after you got something better. But when you go out of order, that can be the case. Now, we saw an interesting take on this in Link Between Worlds, the 3DS game, where you could kind of rent these items, but then when you beat the dungeon, you would actually have them for good. And it was a pretty good, like, halfway decision. Like, it felt nice. I really love that game. I think it's one of the better Zelda titles. But it wasn't perfect, and I still like the idea of having to complete an area to get that item. And so I think Tears of the Kingdom is tackling this in a really cool, really neat way that not only has interesting mechanical gameplay usage, but character usage as well, because now these characters are coming alongside you, and it allows them to factor in more heavily to your play experience and not just be something that, like, oh, they're there for the dungeon and then they're gone and you never see them again. Well, you don't, but you get their clone to sort of come and appear as a companion with you, plus during the dungeon getting to fight alongside them is kind of elevated tech for Nintendo. I mean, we know games like Skyrim and Fallout have companions, and that's become a staple of those types of open world RPG franchises. So now that Zelda is open world, give us these darn companions. You could see where this would go for like a third game in this sort of series of open world Zeldas, where maybe you actually do recruit companions and keep them with you. There's still a bit of mystery about some of those NPC fights we saw alongside the third trailer reveal, and so I'll keep you posted if I hear anything more on that. But I really like this idea of sort of dungeon items and abilities merging into what I feel is maybe the best solution Nintendo could have come up with, given all the variables, given a non-linear structure, given an open world, given dungeons that are trying to be like dungeons, but maybe don't have all the exact same systems as dungeons, but wanting you to feel like those dungeons progress your character, but not just in the form of a perk or a buff. You know, I really think they had a lot to think about here, and the more that I dive in, the more I feel like, yeah, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom introduced so many obstacles that a linear traditional Zelda never had to face. And so balancing that, but still getting what the fans want in there, what the fans remember, what our nostalgic brains say, please put dungeons in. They've done that, and while I won't show anything here, I've seen some pictures and, whoo baby, I'm freaking flipping out because I think this is going to be the all game. I've said it before and I'll probably say it again, but Tears of the Kingdom truly seems scope, scale, content like this is Nintendo's greatest achievement ever. So let me know in the comments down below what you think about having dungeon items as abilities, but first as companion abilities, and then second as ghost companions that still utilize the ability in the way that an item would be used, but you're pulling out a person as opposed to pulling out, I don't know, a freaking boomerang. I think it is the best sort of meeting in the middle solution that they could come up with, and already Tears of the Kingdom sounds like such a massive improvement over Breath of the Wild. I hope the DLC discussion is gone for good. Also remember that Champions Ballad DLC, while they did improve the abilities, they were significantly better, but I don't feel like, I feel like this is an even better solution. So this is building upon Breath of the Wild and its DLC as it rightfully should, but not just replicating and feeling like another DLC. I mean, we're not even talking about the game world itself, but specifically on these abilities front, Nintendo has made significant moves in the right direction and evolved the idea and concepts that they began in Breath of the Wild and sort of made a happy medium. That's the phrase I've been looking for this whole darn video. A happy medium between traditional linear Zelda and new open world Zelda. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. We're getting so close to launch. You know I got you covered for everything Tears of the Kingdom, pre-launch and post-launch. I'll have awesome gameplay tips. No story spoilers. None of them. You don't have to worry. I got you covered. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy, stay positive out there. Love you lots. SwitchForce out.